Oh, great. Welcome everybody, and just if you want to see more folks' faces, just remember that you can switch to the gallery view on Zoom. It's up in the right-hand corner. If you don't want the side strip that shows up on your computer screen. We're going to go ahead and get started. Judy, is your friend Fathom recording, or? All right, it looks like Judy might be still waiting to get in. Why don't we actually hold off, since I think Joanna is going to do our land and equity acknowledgement. And Joanna, are you here yet? Okay, then why don't we go to Blair with yep, we're going to do the talk a little bit about our awards dinner and our silent auction right here at the beginning. So thanks a lot, Blair, for coming and speaking to us tonight. I think you're off mute, right?
I am.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. So I am helping Jane this year with the award ceremony and silent auction. Jane is in charge of everything except for the donations. So I am making a quick call for donations, and we have a couple of ideas. If you're curious how you could donate, we are wondering if maybe delegates would talk to their own RNOs about doing sort of a collaborative effort. We are on the serious hunt for all kinds of things from, I'll give you ideas. There have been tickets to the art museum donated. There have been ABS tickets. There have been framed paintings have been donated. We have all kinds of things. So if you have, if you wanted to do a donation, like monetary, Jackie, I would say just to talk to your RNO, we can find something for any price point. I'm 100% positive. So you talk to the RNO and I will help brainstorm an item. If you guys need help with that, just contact me. My email is my name. So it's Blair, BLAIRNTAYLOR @gmail. You're absolutely welcome to call me. My phone number is 646-584-1033. And you can share that with anybody. The date of the ceremony is September 13th, which feels like it's far away, but it's not. So if you can make a request from your RNO members, I'm happy to send out emails and make phone calls. Really, we're looking for anything and everything. It could be a wine and cheese basket. It could be a $20 gift card to Ace. Anything is welcome. So call me if you need any ideas. And we're asking that they, if possible, if it's small or medium sized, I'm happy to house it. But if you have like an 8-foot television, I would hope that you could just hold that until the day of, because I don't have space for that. But anything else, I'm happy to hold. If you have something in your house right now and you're like, I need to get this out, give me a call or shoot me an email and I'll figure out how to connect and get it. And that is about all from me. Does anybody have any questions besides Jackie? No.
And I'll just say, I did just put Blair's contact info or her email in the chat, as well as a link to the online donation form, and there's a PDF donation form as well. And we're going to try to use both of those for any.
Yeah, if you are not handy with the Google Doc, I have a PDF. You can just print it out, fill it out by hand, and either take a picture or scan it and send it back to me. And that's my contact information. And I'm happy to help you figure out whatever.
Great. And I think we can try to get that PDF form out as well in our email that goes out to RNOs and get it posted on the website as well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, Blair. And if does anybody have any questions? It looks like there's one in the chat from Jackie Shumway. I hope I'm saying that right. How much from the RNOs?
I think that you guys should talk about that individually, whatever you're comfortable with. I don't want to assume that you've got extra money to throw around, but I would just ask people and say, you know, it's going to support INC and they do a lot of good work. And if you need me to write you a script, I will do that. I'm happy to. But really, I would just ask, I'd say if everybody on the board wants to contribute a little bit, or if the board has, you know, a little bit of money that they'd like to donate. Again, it could be anything from Starbucks cards to museum tickets to really whatever you can come up with. I'm sure it's something that we all use, like, you know, Nick's Florist, whatever it is, we can figure it out. Somebody will love it. And we're happy to have it. So thank you so much. And I am going to go cook dinner for my kids. Yay.
Thank you, Blair. Thank you very much.
Yeah, happy to. And I'm going to I'll be on listening, but so if you have questions, feel free to let me know.
Great. Thanks so much, Blair. And with that, I just added Blair's email again in the chat. I think maybe earlier I might have just sent it to the waiting room, but Blair put her email in there as well. So we've got it several times, and feel free to reach out to us to it. I think if you have any questions as well. All right, thanks. Now we're going to move kind of back in our agenda here. Let me try to get this up. I think Joanna, are you online now? And just a quick reminder to everybody to put yourself on mute if you're not speaking. That'll help to take down the background noise. Joanna, I think I saw.
I am.
Okay,
thank
great.
you. Okay.
Can you do our land and equity acknowledgement?
Yes, thank you. So the land acknowledgement. As residents of Colorado, we stand on unceded industrial lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Lakota, and Ute nations and peoples. These lands were also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other indigenous tribes. We recognize Native and indigenous peoples as the original stewards of this land and our presence among their descendants who still dwell within it. We pay our respects to indigenous and Native elders, past and present, and our equity acknowledgement. We acknowledge that radical justice, equity, and climate justice are inextricably intertwined, and that poor, vulnerable, and primarily Black, indigenous, and people of color disproportionately bear the burden due to the lingering effects of systemic discriminatory practices. We commit to doing our part to ensure that when taking any action to create a substantial and regenerative future, we will respect, promote, and consider our respective obligations concerning all aspects of equity and strive to create systems in which everyone can thrive. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Joanna. Let's see here. Oops, okay. Yes, moving on our agenda here. You know, I just want to do a quick point of reference here. You know, one thing that's come up in some of our executive committee meetings is that Inc. doesn't do a very good job of recognizing itself that of all the things that we've achieved. So I'd like to, if you're a executive committee member, do you mind putting your hand up electronically? No, well, you can do that, but you can also raise your hand. Yep, on Zoom. And I just want to take a minute to say thank you and acknowledge all the executive committee members that have really dialed in this year and done a lot, just a lot. I can't even tell you how much of their free time that they have dedicated to this organization. And I just want to say thank you for myself and for, you know, all the members of Inc. for all the work that you guys have done this year so far. And I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we've done already this year, which I'm incredibly proud of and incredibly excited about. You know, in programming, you know, we started off the year with doing a great education presentation from Joanna, Rosa-Saenz. And, you know, we in February, Judy helped put together a great event with the Office of Special Events. Jane organized an event in March in Southwest Denver that included an expanded waste services rollout from the city. And talking about that, Drew, who, you know, is a former president and has left us for the Peace Corps, did a great program in April in Globeville area, Swansea, highlighting air pollution. I helped with Lamone in May to put on a program in Northwest Denver on building a more inclusive and DEI-centered, you know, neighborhood organization. In June, Adam helped to put together an alternative transportation and bike infrastructure program. And then this month, we're really excited to talk about with Lou and Amber and some other presenters on, you know, starting and then growing, how to grow your neighborhood organization more. And so I'm really just excited about all the things that we've done so far this year. We've passed a couple of great resolutions, and then we have a lot of stuff coming up on the second half of the year that, you know, we're excited about as well. We're bringing back the awards ceremony in September. We're creating an RNO 101 guide that we think is going to be really useful for RNOs. Very excited that we're going to relaunch the zoning and planning committee this fall. And we also are working on redesigning and doing kind of a facelift for our website. So we got a lot of things coming up as well, and we're very excited. You know, just to keep on rocking this year. And just again, thank you to all the board members and executive committee members that have put in all this time. And make sure, again, somebody in the chat is asking if we can make sure that everybody, can you mute yourselves so we're not getting any background noise. With that, I think I want to, just say that, you know, if you are a current member or you know, you've been a member and your membership's lapsed, now's a great time to join Inc. You know, and we're definitely looking for more folks that want to get involved with some of the programming and planning that we're doing. You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to Maggie Price at membership at Denver Inc. It's, you know, $40 a year is not a whole lot. And you can donate more if you'd like as an RNO. We're excited. That includes your upcoming, you know, dinner for a couple of delegates at our awards ceremony. That's going to be at Racy's Brewery in Sun Valley near the football stadium in September. So definitely looking forward to all that. Please feel free to reach out, and I'll put these links in the chat as well. With that, I think we can move on to the committee reports.
Hi, I've got a question in the chat.
You can put something in the chat, yeah. I did not see, somebody's asking if there was a gift card compensation for taking part in this meeting, and I don't think there is. But if you want to email me or talk to me personally, we can talk more about it. Moving on, I think we're going to go to financial reports from Greg. Greg, are you on?
I am.
Great, thanks, Greg.
So a quick report. Our total funds for the operating account is $22,315, and we have $16,813.29 in our community fund for a total of $39,128.27. In June, we just had 2 membership renewals at $80 plus pennies and interest. And our expenses amounted to $71.35. To date, we haven't spent anything from our community fund, but I would like to point out that we have a budget category for INC grants. And these are grants to any RNO that needs help funding a project, a newsletter, or whatever. They're limited to $300 per grant. And the application is on our website. www.denverinc.org/inc-grant-application. So we encourage you, if you need help with your RNO, if you're a little bit short in funds, you might consider applying for one of these grants. That's it. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Moving on, Joel.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. The INC Transportation Committee meeting that was to happen in July was preempted. About a week before the meeting, the transition committees for Mayor Mike Johnston's mayoral transition, the committee for DOTI, specifically the Department of Transportation Infrastructure, had a public input meeting scheduled the exact same day, exact same time, Thursday from 6 to 8. So made the decision to encourage all members of the INC Transportation Committee to attend that because this is sort of a once a decade plus or minus opportunity to start a new administration with ideas for what's important and what's working and what's not. So I was in touch with all the speakers we had lined up and successfully rescheduled them for September. So we're on for September, our normal schedule, September 14th, 6 to 8 p.m. via Zoom.
Thanks,
And we had a
Joel.
great turnout at the meeting. There was something like 85 people at the INC or at the mayoral transition DOTI meeting, many of which were INC transportation regulars. And then there were another 40 people online. So they got to hear a lot of input.
Great, thanks, Joel. I just want to recognize Joel too. He was just recognized by City Council for all his work on the Community Planning and Development Board. So good job, Joel, and thank you for representing Inkwell there for all your years of service. Moving on, I believe, Adam, are you here? I think Adam is not able to come to the first part of the meeting. I will just give a quick update that the next.
I can do it.
Okay, Jane.
I was prepared to do it, so.
Oh, perfect.
That's
awesome.
I'm co-chair of the Sustainability Committee, and our next meeting will be on August 17th at 6:30. We have some wonderful speakers lined up that night. And it's in Denver's Nature. It's a 15-minute thing by Yolanda. And then we're going to have the Urban Tree Planning for the City by Elizabeth Judd, and Xeriscaping by Michelle. And I'm sorry, I do not know Michelle's last name, but I've seen her presentation and it's fabulous. I'm going to try to copy what examples she gives us from my own yard. So join us, please, on August 17th on Zoom at 6:30. And we'll have some wonderful updates on how to take care of tree planting and xeriscaping for your yard.
Great, thanks so much, Jane. Next, we have education with Joanna.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So just an update on the Education Youth Civic Awards. We went ahead and felt it necessary to hold off to release any funds until August as this new school year approaches, and the amount of time and really making sure that there is accountability and transparency. We've decided to go ahead and in August, we would release the funds to the Youth Civic awardees. And in November, we would go ahead and have the celebration, November 11th. I would like to make an announcement as this role in the Education Committee and finding the perfect fit, as I have a lot of different things I am managing. I have a great friend by the name of Steve Smith, who I've known for more than a decade, who is also a DPS teacher, who will be co-chairing this with me. I did say at the last meeting regarding Melissa Dickey, and I see that she's on, so hi, Melissa. So I still plan that she'll be a part of this. I really am looking with this committee as it is new and we are We revived it. The expertise of Steve Smith. He not only on top of being a DPS teacher, he's a senior education policy specialist. He did the national conference of the state legislators, so he brings a lot to the table, and very happy that that he is here with us. So I would like to, if you would like to say any words, Steve, I would love for you to jump on if that is okay with our president.
Sure, but I think we do have a lot tonight, and we're gonna get, we need to get through all that, but yeah, Steve, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Look forward to working with everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Was there anything else, Joanna?
Nope, that is it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And finally, Lamone, are you on with the DEI committee?
Good afternoon or evening, everybody. I don't have anything new to report other than we're going to be planning for our DEI event in October. And there's a couple of people on this meeting I'm going to recruit specifically. I want to tie it into the RNO 101 launch. So I'm actively recruiting Lou and Amber, in addition to the other people on the committee, to get a really good event for you all in October.
Great, thanks so much, Lamone.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, see ya. All right, and I think that brings us to Jane, and we talked about this a little bit with Blair, but I think if you want to do speak a little bit more about our upcoming awards ceremony, that would be great.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, I think everybody's looking forward to having another award ceremony. We had to take a COVID timeout, and so we're coming back in September. And the main reason we do this is to acknowledge individuals in neighborhoods all over the city who've done something sort of out of the way and outstanding and really helped their neighborhood. So we ask members of RNOs and council members and other people to nominate individuals in their community that have done the above and beyond. And we honor them that night with a neighborhood star or a specific award for the area of work that they have done. And it's just sort of a fun event of meeting new people in neighborhoods who are active doing the kind of work that you're doing in your neighborhood. It'll be catered by Serendipity Catering. It'll be at Ricey's Brewery at 2060 West Colfax. I can't say enough about our sponsors. Visit Denver has been our sponsor for 20 years, and they've been a substantial sponsor. The other sponsors are listed on the website, and they've all been with us for many years. So I really thank them. We're starting to get some donations in from different members of City Council. I've gotten some donations from some that are staying on, and I'm getting ready to make a request to the new ones as well. And of course, they're invited. Every RNO is welcome to have their delegates attend. We invite certain members of the city staff, the police department, the fire department, people that are really engaged in the community that we all need to work with. So it says right here in front of you that we need silent auction gifts. And I just want to remind you that we also need nominations for these awards. You can find the information on denverinc.org. I think that's it.
Great, thank you so much, Jane. I think that gets us to, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. I think Adam might be on later and he can talk a little bit more about this, but you know, for the past few months, I believe starting in May, we had talked about Inc. endorsing, doing an official position endorsement of the Greener Denver platform. And we sent this out to all the delegates and RNOs that are members, and it passed. this month, and we just wanted to celebrate that. And that's an official endorsement from Inc. Endorsing what has basically been the city fulfilling its plans that it's put together on some of these greener Denver initiatives. Jane, I see you popped up. Did you want to say anything else about this? Okay, then if Adam gets on later and he's able to join us, we'll see if he wants to say anything else about this. But thank you to everyone. We're still working through kind of some of the new rules that we put in place to make sure that these endorsements are more of a true voice of city neighborhoods, and not just, you know, a couple of people that showed up for one meeting, but to really put some effort into making sure that we're getting the word out about these to neighborhoods across Denver, so that when we're speaking with one voice. So thank you to everybody, and please feel free, if you still have any questions about this process, to reach out to us and ask those questions. Moving on from that, I believe we're ready to start our presentation for the night. Amber, are you available?
I'm ready. I was just turn my video off so I could practice again. But
Great.
yes, I'm ready.
Let me just cue this up real quick, just to say that I think, yeah, so we're going to break this into two parts. One is going to be on organizing. We're very excited that Lou Raders from our Inc. board, and also the head of the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association can speak to us on some tips for organizing your RNO. And then we're going to talk about building your communications network and building your RNO. And we've got some great folks talking about the block captain program. And so I'll be kind of just keeping time and making sure we're on time for folks. And other than that, we'll let you guys take it away.
Yay. Awesome.
And
Thanks.
I'll try to get run the chat too if there's any questions for you all. So I'll try to make sure I'm kind of monitoring that and asking questions from them.
Great.
If
I'll keep an
anybody
eye out.
has questions during this, sorry, Amber, if anybody has questions, please throw them in the chat and we'll do that. Do it that way. So thanks.
Great. And then I just wanted to also thank you, Keith, for your role as president. You thanked all of us, and I just wanted to thank you for your hard work. I'm sure it's been a big time commitment for you, maybe that you weren't expecting, or you were, but you've been a great leader so far. So thank you for your time too. And with that, I'm going to get started. This is my first time hosting an INC meeting as well as a Zoom meeting. So bear with me if there are any hiccups along the way. I also wanted to welcome you guys to an atypical meeting on a weekday in the evening rather than a Saturday morning. We're trying something new. So thank you for bearing with us and going through this process of maybe a little bit of change, which maybe it'll stick, maybe it won't. But thank you for coming on a weekday evening. And with that, I'm going to get right into it. First, I'm going to start with some background on what brought these two topics up for the meeting tonight. It was during the May delegate meeting that we hosted at Regis, where David Sabatos with Denver North Star was presenting about using community newspapers as a great resource to get the word out about what's going on in and around a neighborhood, and even a broader, how to reach the broader community. And during that presentation, we started a discussion about organizing, and then the subset of organizing about using block captains to organize. And there was great discussion about that. So much discussion, we didn't have enough time to cover everything. So we decided, hey, let's do a whole meeting about that. So that's what brought the topics here tonight. As Keith said, Lou is going to be doing the first part of the presentation about organizing. Some of you may be well-oiled machines like her RNO is with organizing, or maybe you're not as far along in the process. Either way, you're going to find some amazing information out tonight from her. And then Roberta Anderson with my RNO Harkness Heights, and Dale Rudolph with Lou's RNO Cherry Creek North are going to be doing the second part about block captains. And then I'm going to touch on some stark differences between our two RNOs. Harkness Heights, we are one of the smallest RNOs in the city. We only have about 380 doors at last count. Cherry Creek North, because they're so big and changing and expanding, they're currently at 2,386 with quite a few under construction. We have 25 block captains currently. 2 of our blocks are open. They're not open for long usually. And then Cherry Creek North has 56 block captains, which is amazing. Our program was started back in 1989, and Roberta Anderson is going to talk more about what started our program, maybe something that can help start yours. And then Cherry Creek's North program was started more than 15 years ago. It was really great doing the due diligence together and talking to these 3 women and how similar all of our program, our block, they call it block builders, we call it block captains, it's synonymous. But it was great to see, you know, we'd never chatted about how it got started, how to start one together. And it was great to see how similar they were. And then the last thing I'm going to say before I hand it to Lou is we have 2 different question sections. So not only please put your questions in the chat as you have them, but also during that question allotment time, we have 10 minutes of questions for each presentation. Please ask questions. This is why we got here today was during that question and answer phase at the delegate meeting in May. So please ask questions, concerns, comments. I feel like that is the most fruitful part of a lot of these meetings. It's just the discussion and the back and forth between us all. So thanks again for coming. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Lou.
Thank you very much. I think, let's see, Keith, I'm going to have to ask you, please, to allow me to share my screen.
Yep, I'm doing that right now. You should be able to share.
Okay. Can we all see that now?
It's still popping up. There it is.
Okay. All right. Can you see my cursor? Hopefully, I'm going to try to make this a little smaller because it looks like there. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to look at the participants and I'm going to see how many of you drop off. But so if this can be a dry topic, but it's an important topic. And I came on the INC board to not just to help INC in its sort of renewed vigor about reaching its mission, but really to help RNOs give that every block, every voice some texture, some reality, and some help, frankly. Amber said her very small RNO is very, they're organized, they have very few people to reach. We have a very large neighborhood, and we are very organized, and it takes some time to get organized. And we are lucky because I think both of our RNOs have a lot of really engaged people that are willing to do the work, because it does take work. So my little part of this is to just talk basically about how to form your RNO and what do you have to do to form it and then keep it alive and well. So I call it the care and feeding of your RNO part. And the beginning is always with who are you and what do you do? I wanted to point out here that Denver is made up of 78 statistical neighborhoods. I'm going to scroll down here so you can see. And by the way, this outline will be on the INC website, so you can take a look at it. And then we'll be available to answer questions as people kind of think through some of these issues for themselves. These are the statistical neighborhoods. I'm going to try to bring this up a little bit more so you can see it. Unfortunately, the only one I could find still has Stapleton and not Central Park. Sorry about this, but what you can see is that there's like an exception here for Glendale, which is carved out of Denver. But these are the statistical neighborhoods for Denver. But as you can see, Cherry Creek is one, this little peachy orange color right here is the statistical neighborhood. But in fact, we have two RNOs, the Cherry Creek North and Cherry Creek East. So the fact that there are statistical neighborhoods, which are not going to change, again, these were based in the census formulation. We have many more RNOs than there are statistical neighborhoods. And we have the organization of different RNOs into larger groups. Take Chun, for example. Capitol Hill United Neighbors includes Cherry Creek North. It does not include Cherry Creek East. So the boundaries can be drawn as the RNO deems it appropriate, but the RNO code, and I put this here, and then you'll have an access to this that you'll be able to follow, talks about how we really don't want a lot of different RNOs where they overlap. So that's really discouraged. It's only if it makes sense for a particular subset of an area to look at its issues and its mission statement slightly differently. So that's why the RNO ordinance has some real requirements. You can't just have, frankly, one person form an RNO and have a mission statement that's different just because they don't want to be a part of their other RNO. I have worked with Cherry Creek East. I used to live in Cherry Creek East when they had some issues and frankly blew up the RNO. And people see this where there are tensions in the RNO because somehow they're not necessarily meeting the needs of all of the residents of that area. Real issues, real ways to sort of address them. Sometimes it means that maybe they need to split into two. Many times they just need to make sure they're on the same page. Transparency is important with RNOs and doing the work so that you give the residents of the neighborhood or of the particular RNO boundary that is selected a voice with the city. So I do want to note that the RNO statute also points this out, ordinance I should say, is that RNOs are very different from HOAs. So if you live in a condo building, you have a homeowners association, the residents in that homeowners association are also members of the RNO. So they are very, very different animals governed by completely different rules, regulations, and laws. But everyone who lives in the area of the RNO is a member under the particular ordinance that I pointed out for you here. The other thing to keep in mind is that while Paul Cashman and I think Troop D just put in the chat a little bit ago that they're going to be reporting, he's been looking at RNO reform. We know that we need to do better by residents and getting them a voice in the RNOs. So Cherry Creek North is trying very, very hard to make sure that we reach all residents. They don't have to pay to be a member. They are a member by living here. We want those opinions. And that's a tough thing. And I think that'll be the second part of the program tonight, which is how do you bring more people to participate in the RNOs? But the first thing you have to do is make sure that you're formed properly. Now, and I talked about these coalitions, and there are several of them, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that if you're an RNO, it's a creature of this ordinance, right? It only exists because the ordinance says there shall be registered neighborhood organizations and they shall have these characteristics. So some of the most important ones that are in that ordinance are each RNO must hold at least one meeting per year at which members vote. Now, some people have voting requirements. We in Cherry Creek North do have we call it a supporting member. It's a paid membership. And those people vote on things that affect the operation of the organization for things like, do we want to look at these zoning changes or ordinance changes or take a position on something? Everybody in the neighborhood who is a member, we try to make sure that they have a voice and can vote. So, but there has to be a vote, like who are your directors? And that's really where the RNO ordinance says you've got to make sure that you have the members of your RNO voting for your leadership. So the next bullet here, you have to have at least 12 members present at that meeting. where you're going to have a vote. You have to post the notice of the meeting at which the voting meeting, and you have to do it in advance, and you have to keep track of how you communicated that to the people in your RNO. And lastly, the renewal registration process with the city is very specific. It's free, but you have to go online, and you have to, it's usually December 1 to January 31st. And then there's another period where you can also register in July. But you have to register to be able to be an effective RNO and be in the city's communication chain. So if you are a registered RNO with the city, you will get notices of those matters coming down the pike in the city legislative process that affect your neighborhood. Why? Because they know who you are, because you filed your RNO statement that includes your boundaries. So they'll be able to tell if there's a new liquor license coming up in your neighborhood, where is it going to be? And they will send to that person that is on the registration with the city the information necessary to be shared with the neighborhood, so that, again, that communication process with the city is there and effective. So let's talk a little bit about some more basics about how you organize your RNO. Now, there are plenty of types of organizations. If you go to the code, now this is the state code of statutes about corporations and nonprofit corporations, and there can be co-ops and different things. There are a whole bunch of them. Ditch companies, partnerships, limited liability companies. There's a long list, but the most standardized for the kinds of nonprofit corporations are under the Colorado Revised Nonprofit Corporation Act. So if you want to be a nonprofit association, you can be an association without a lot of, you don't have to be a nonprofit corporation, you can be association, but it's fuzzy about how many layers you need to complete to be able to actually do the business, to protect your directors. The easiest way for RNOs is to change their form if you are not incorporated and incorporate, which you can do on the Secretary of State website. And this is where everybody's going to fall asleep, but I'm going to wake you up. Hey, you can always ask us for help. I mean, our goal in doing this RNO 101 handbook is to give resources and then to be a resource for RNOs, so that we can help those communities that just haven't been very active, or where they've been left out in certain ways. What we really want to do now is bring people in, help them be organized, help them be a voice at the city table for their neighborhoods. So while some of this is going to be a little dry, it's meant to be a checklist. So if you go to the Secretary of State website, and if that is confusing and you get your people together, our goal is to make sure that you have some resources to know how to do that. But you search the name of your neighborhood, your RNO, and then you can find out whether they are registered, whether they are up to date, and you can do a lot of things once you find your entity, and you can amend and restate your articles, file new documents. You file once a year, so they know who to contact from the Secretary of State's office. It is not expensive to do that. It is something that you need to make sure that your board and your leadership team for your RNO are on the same page. But suffice it to say, and I have a caveat here, I am a retired attorney. I am not currently, licensed to practice law, but different neighborhoods can function differently, and there's a breadth of opportunities for neighborhoods to try to understand who they are, who they're representing, who they want to reach, what they want to do, what is their real mission, all within that confines of that RNO ordinance. So Troopy, I see you have your hand up and I'm going to come back to you in just a second. I'll finish this pretty quickly here. So again, I want to talk about if you've formed or converted your organization to a Colorado nonprofit corporation, you can either be a charitable tax exempt organization. I just helped Lowry achieve that status, or like Cherry Creek North, we are a 501c4, in which case any donations are not deductible, and we can take broader actions than you can, frankly, if you're a C3. You can also be a general nonprofit corporation, but there's really not a, and again, these are more associations. The nonprofit corporation statute has a lot of protections for directors that some of these other options don't really provide for you. So, you know, this is one of those things that when people come on a board and they say, well, who are we and what are we doing? It's a good thing from time to time to look at your organizational documents. Are your bylaws up to date? Are there things that you need to change? And many of you know we updated the INC bylaws in 21. So it is, it's a good process to look at your organizational documents, your articles, your bylaws. Again, you don't have to file your bylaws with the Secretary of State, but you can. You can file what's called a constituent document related to your entity on the Secretary website. And then everyone knows who you are and what you're doing. And especially with RNOs, that kind of transparency is valued at the city, frankly, and it allows your residents to look you up and know, oh, here's what you do, here's what you are. And if you're going to be an exempt, if you're going to be a C3 or a C4, you do have to file those with the IRS to get those exemption letters. You're going to get one of those. And again, our goal is to make sure you know that if you want to do that, you have to do that. And then we'll try to build into this RNO 101 handbook ways to help you find that path. The other thing is, if you have any dues that you're collecting, you likely have a bank account. To get a bank account, you have to provide to the bank your EIN. That's an employment ID number. Much like individually, you have a social security number. If you're an entity, you're going to have an SS form file that gives you an EIN. Now that applies whether you're a partnership or an LLC or a for-profit corporation. It's a pretty easy thing to get. And it doesn't mean you have to have employees. Very few RNOs have funds to actually have hired employees, but these are things you'll need to do just so that you can get up and alive and active and be in compliance. And then we go to this next little piece, which hopefully it'll be more of a checklist here, is once you have yourself formed, you've got your board, you've got your articles filed, your bylaws filed, you're registered with the city under the RNO ordinance. Then what do you do to make sure that you keep yourself, again, the care and feeding of your organization has to stay up to date. And so this requires each RNO on an annual basis to really make sure that they do that corporate hygiene. You know, look and see, are you complying with your mission? This is my little checklist for you all. What is your legal structure? Have you adopted board resolutions that somehow didn't get delivered to everybody and you're not necessarily complying with board resolutions on actions? Your bylaws are really how you operate. The articles are more who you are, and so, you know, check those from time to time. Again, you need your EIN. You probably need to file taxes. I think there were a number of people who thought, well, I didn't think we had to file taxes if we're a nonprofit, but you do if you take money in. And now these are I think our tax filings are like under $100 filed with our accountant. And it's a very easy, again, these are nonprofits, so there are a lot of people who do this work inexpensively from the accounting standpoint, and some people can do them themselves. You got to file annually with the city, as I said, number 5 here. You want to look at who your cooperative memberships. We're members of the Cherry Creek North Chamber. We're members of Inc. We're members of Chun. So again, look at who in your area are part of your sphere of influence or part of your mentor groups. Those things are important. And that's a plug for Inc. too there. Make sure that you have your accounting in order. Your treasurer is one of your most invaluable board members. I know we thank Greg every day for the work that he does, because somebody has to keep the bank account, make sure the money is entered correctly, make sure that the audits are done if you are big enough and need to do an audit. So again, then you have to do every year when you bring new people in on your board, you have to do your corporate governance. Make sure everybody understands the articles, the bylaws, make sure that they understand that you are an IRS determined 501c3 or 4 if you go that direction. You want to make sure that you share archive of your board minutes so they know what's going on. Make sure that you've got the operational resolutions available. Make sure that those new board members look over your accounting, know who the committees are, understand their responsibility as board members. Who does what and how are each accountable to the other, and make sure that they understand that when they walk on to the board, they're serving that organization and not their personal interests. Very, very important for basic board governance. Make sure that you look from time to time. Is your membership structure right? Are you a neighborhood that can ask people for supporting memberships? Or if not, where do you find funds for basic operations? And as you just heard from Keith and Jane, there are opportunities to ask for grants, ask for help. And so not all RNO is going to function the same. Remember, you need to do your annual meeting. How did you publish? Do you have a website? If not, did you drop flyers? Did you post? And then you look at what your RNO is providing to those members. Social opportunities, block builders, which we're going to talk about. And then every year you go through, I'm almost done here, your quick little checklist. Did you file your annual report? It's $10, easily done on the Secretary of State website. If you become a 501c3 unit, have an additional filing with the Secretary of State. You have to file your annual filing with the RNO under the ordinance. That's free. Most RNOs, if they can, will consider at some point getting liability insurance. So if you hold meetings or events, liability insurance is a really good thing to have. And officers and directors, or DNO, directors and officers insurance, even though if you are a Colorado nonprofit corporation, your officers are going to have certain protections under the statute. We usually also make sure that they're put in the bylaws or the articles. You can put them different places, but you want to make sure that if you take a position on something and somebody is disgruntled and they say, they acted inappropriately, they took some action that injured my development or my whatever, that if they come after your RNO, you have some protection for your officers and directors. Now, a lot of RNOs don't take those kind of actions. So a lot of it is talking to somebody and figuring out, is this something we really should get? Protection is always a good thing, but can RNOs really afford that? And then if they don't, maybe they should not take some of those actions. PO boxes. Usually if people have a PO box, that costs something. You can pay it annually, you can pay it monthly, but somebody has to take care of those things. And then the last thing that I'll mention is how important the communication is. The RNO ordinance says you got to send out a notice and you have to tell us how your notice. And when you sign up, they're going to say, do you have a website? Do you have a newsletter? And all of these things, your website URL and those things cost, some don't. Your YouTube channel is free if somebody will put that under their name. So these are all things. And again, we'll put this available for you to look at and say, and you might say, we're a really small RNO, but we have a lot of these things. Could we easily implement some of these checklists? So with that, I don't know if there are any questions, but I will give it back to Keith and I'll stop sharing. Again, this will be up on the website.
Great. Thanks so much, Lou. And yeah, we have time for a couple of quick questions. We're trying to stay on time. So we're going to try to get started with our block builders program in about 5 or 6 minutes. So I'll go ahead and start with Trupti.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Good stuff, Lou. I mean, this is so necessary for folks to understand. One of the things I was thinking of as you're presenting this is I think we kind of went back and forth between the various paths that people in RNO can take. And I'm wondering if we do a little bit of a, flow chart and that, someone can be just an RNO and never do anything else, never become an LLC or an entity with Secretary of State, and never become a 501(c)(3), but if you're going to be a 501(c)(3), you have to do both this LLC, you have to incorporate and do the IRS piece. I'm just wondering if we can break that out, because and then also below that, what are the advantages, disadvantages of each of these pieces? Because there's probably folks who are either not leveraging opportunity or frankly just doing stuff wrong because they don't understand. They probably can't do that in the structure that they're in. So I'm wondering if we can create kind of, that level of information that would be easy to say, here's where I am, this is where I want to be, here's what I want to be able to do. And I can't do that under my current structure. I can't do that if I only do this and not do that. So, but it is possible to operate as an RNO and not do any of the other things, such as be an entity or be tax exempt 501(c)(4). I'm really interested in the 4 now because I wasn't aware of this. So Lou, I'll probably reach out to you. But yeah, I think we can make those distinctions a little bit clearer and allow folks to kind of choose what makes most sense for them. We have all of this stuff going on, so I can easily kind of follow along, but there's always something new to learn. So I really appreciate you guys doing this. Thank you.
And just to, I've never seen an LLC an LLC as an RNO, but remember, you have to have 12 members at a meeting, a formal meeting. So even just that one requirement of the RNO ordinance, think about what that means. You have to have members. Who's a member, who's not? You have to have voting. How do you vote? How do you take a quorum? So while you say you can just be an RNO, you can't really, because if anything else, if you just get a bunch of people together and say, let's be an RNO, what you're doing is you're forming an unincorporated association. And then the question is, well, what does that mean? Well, how do you do things? You really need bylaws. So again, the thought that you can just be an RNO and not have a structure is not really correct, because you're unintentionally creating a structure. And then the question is, how do you do it best?
But then I think we have to work with the city council to, make that very clear and not allow the ordinance to say, you could just do this and you're an RNO, when, I think on the back end, we would set ourselves up for liability, failure, breaking the law if we didn't do other things. So I agree with you. And if, if the city, we should be working with the city to set everybody up for success. And if that means you should do this and this and this as the basis, then they should put that into the ordinance and not, this kind of little fuzzy, definition of how to be an RNO. Because I know there's folks on the, on this call right now that are operating in that fuzzy space right now.
Yeah.
I think that's you're spot on, Troop D. You and I have had these conversations. I so value your opinion because it is true. I think that people really want to look at this and understand better. And I think that is why one of the reasons I joined the INC board is to really help with some of these checklists, because the city ordinance is not very clear. It tells you what you have to do. You have 12 members. Well, what does that mean? And you have to have a voting, you have to meet once a year, and you have to vote, and you have to, when you go through that list of putting your RNO, registering it with the city, you're going to see some of those things, and you can scratch your head a little bit about it. But again, this is a primer, and there's a lot to flow from it. I see just the chat. There are a lot of great comments in the chat that are, yes, your 990 form that you file that, those are your taxes, by the way. And so you usually, once you file that, you're again, these are really fairly simple, but distinguishing what this animal is from other things is important. So if you've been on your HOA board before, it's totally different. And yet the basics, articles, bylaws, meetings, transparency, a lot of those things you're gonna find are very much the same. So again, this is just a primer. And then
let's do this. And if everybody can mute themselves for a minute, since I do want to get to Gertie, and also I think that we might have some opportunity for some more questions about this after our next presentation, so we can make sure to do that. And I also, and please put your questions in the chat, so we'll make sure that we get to them. And then, as Lou said, this is the start of a longer conversation. I think we could have a meeting that's solely about RNO formation. And I love the flowchart idea. I'm a visual person as well. And so I think that, doing some kind of flowchart with this would be great. But let's go to Gertie real quick, and then we can move on to our black captains. And then if anybody has any follow-up questions on this, we'll make sure we get them at the end of the meeting.
This is Gertie. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I want to thank Lou for doing this because I think it is really critical. It's not only informing an RNO, it's when a new board takes over or new members come on and gradually there's turnover, and it is really important for people to understand that although it is easy, it is not as easy as saying, I want to do this. And I really want to thank Lou for putting this together. This is great. Thank you very much, Lou.
My pleasure, Gertie.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lou. We definitely appreciate it. And we'll definitely figure out a way to get, we're going to get all this information up on the website, and also as we start putting together this RNO 101 book. So thanks again, Lou. And feel free, if you have questions, that we put them in the chat, and we'll make sure we try to get to them later too. With that, Amber.
Can you put the slide deck back up for me?
Yeah, let me, Lou, have you stopped sharing your screen? Okay. Let's see here. Can everybody see that?
Oh, and there it is. Great. Awesome. Yes. Again, thank you, Lou. That was, we could have made the whole meeting about that, darn it. But another time. And now, if there's time for more questions at the end, hopefully, we can leave here with everybody feeling a little more confident and having some direction on what to do next. With that said, I am going to start the block builder portion of which is just another organizational tool in how to get your info once you are properly organized, how to get that information out to your residents. So we're going to go, Roberta Anderson is going to take over the first half. She's from my RNO, Harkness Heights. And then Dale Rudolph from Cherry Creek North from Lou's RNO is going to take the first half or the second half. The first half is going to be, how do I start a program? Well, first of all, we're going to talk about what is a block builder program. And then it's going to be, how do I start one in my RNO? What are the benefits? And then maybe what some of the challenges are. And don't let those challenges deter you. Once it's going, it just becomes a very well-oiled machine. And then any other, at the end, we want to cover any questions or obstacles that you could see starting in your RNO, which might spark some further discussion. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Roberta Anderson.
And if anybody that's presenting just needs the slide deck forwarded or backed up, just let me know and I'll change it.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Hi, my name's Roberta. And if you could go to the next slide, that would be great. Okay, as Amber said, I'm with Harkness Heights and Dale is with the Cherry Creek North Association. They call their a block builder program and we call ours a block captain. So what is basically what it is, this program encourages one representative from each city block to take on the responsibility of being the captain of their block. This leads to a building of a solid foundation for membership. It also makes relaying information to all of the neighbors easy. In addition to building membership, block captains can also welcome new residences, pass out flyers and information, serve as a conduit for specific problems on their block, and a place to volunteer. So what is the role of a block captain or a builder? And what we found, even though we started ours way back in 1989 and Cherry Creek North not quite as far back, most of our responsibilities are pretty much the same. So basically they can be as fluid and they change as the needs of the RNO. So for our neighborhood association, basically our block captains, they gather the information and usually it's a block across the street from each other, not necessarily alley behind. But they get a name, they get phone numbers, they get email addresses, they get contact information. And both, I believe, Cherry Creek North and us, what we do, we put it in some sort of Excel spreadsheet. And then we share, our block anyway, we share that information with everybody on the block. So they have access to that. And they can basically only use it for neighborhood information. So if we're having a block party, they have that information. If they're driving down the alley and they see that a garage door has been left open, they can call that person and say, hey, your garage door is open. So we use the information from the neighbors for a multitude of things. We also use it to email safety and crime prevention information to them. Or if there's a car's been broken into in the neighborhood, they can use it to see if anybody has cameras that they might have caught that theft going on. We also employ our block captains to help to distribute the dues information. And at that time, they can update the information and they can also collect money if they need to for dues. Within the last few years, we've done other PayPal and Zelle as opposed to doing checks and cash. But there's still some older people that don't have access to the internet. So we still get some cash donations as well. We get neighborhood watch meetings out. And in our neighborhood, some of our neighborhood watch, we've got neighborhood watch coordinators on each block. And we've got block captains on each block. And sometimes they work in tandem and sometimes they are the same person. So we incorporate our neighborhood watch captains with our neighborhood block captains. They can be a welcome liaison where they're the first one over to a new neighbor that walks in, welcomes himself, lets them know about themselves. You know, if they need to hook somebody up with childcare or somebody else that maybe is doing rideshare, they're the ones on the block that know what's going on with that. And then they're also very receptive to, they're usually the ones that help plan our social events. And our social events can go as far as Mardi Gras parties, backyard parties, progressive dinners, you name it, happy hours. And this just creates a more social atmosphere on the block where people are more willing to interact with their neighbors. So Keith, if you can go to the next slide, please. How to start a block captain program. So basically, we have one block captain coordinator who's in charge of all the block captains. If we need to distribute flyers, we get the flyers to that one block captain coordinator, and she gets it out to all the other block captains. This person can be somebody that's a self-starter, somebody that's already on your board or in the neighborhood that knows, they've got a lot of social contacts, but it needs to be somebody who can take charge and run with it. And it'd be helpful if you have this person from the start, but a lot of times a board member can take this on until you can find somebody to fill that slot. You would want to hold like an RNO meeting to let the residents know you're going to have a new social and safety program in your neighborhood. And then the board members would need to identify what the role of the block captain will be for your specific neighborhood. You're going to need to identify involved members and have them attend the first meeting to get initial volunteers. You're going to ask block residents who are currently working on neighborhood committees or projects, because they're the ones that are going to be the ones who know most of the people on the block, know the people who might be interested. You're going to ask them if they know of anybody on their blocks or within the neighborhood who might want to take this on. You're going to want to find neighbors who want to network to get involved to be a block captain. A lot of times we've had real estate agents, we've had financial planners, we've had anyone who wants to network. They tend to be really good block captains. And then you want to, what we did back in 1989, at that time, that's when we first formed our RNO. And we had a modular unit that was going to go onto a vacant lot, and it had the neighborhood up in arms. And so that's when we started our RNO. And at that time, the very first meeting, somebody up there was thinking, hey, we need to be able to get things out of the community fast. And so at their first meeting, they said, we want to have 2 block captains on every block. And that's where we started our RNO. So if there's a hot button in your neighborhood, I was speaking with Amber this afternoon, and I guess Mayor Johnston said that he wants to have at least 1,000 unhoused people in homes by Christmas. And he has identified 197 sites, both private and public, where he wants to have micro communities. So this might be one of those hot buttons in your neighborhood if it looks like your neighborhood might have one of those micro communities in it. And then also you might want to print an article explaining the block building or block captain role in your neighborhood in order to get it going. Keith, can you advance it, please? Keith, thank you. Okay, so some of the roles I just reviewed earlier. And in addition to these, we put this up here again because all of these are really necessary to the roles, but also hosting block parties. That's a big one to get everybody involved. We've got 2 or 3 people in our neighborhood who host block parties every summer. And then we have some blocks who host social events like every 2 or 3 months. And they also can be the liaison between the RNO and recruiting volunteers when needing for your neighborhood. So we always do a big annual picnic where we've got anywhere from 200 to 300 guests attend. And we always need people to flip burgers and do check-ins, and we need sponsors. And if you've got a block party, if you've got a block person, you can get them to round up volunteers on your specific block and then feed that into the other activities you're having. And then also a block captain can get out block specific information because I know on our street, our block person a lot of times will look out the window and see people parked when it's street sweeping, and they'll send out just a text to the entire neighborhood. Hey, don't forget to move your car. And that saves, we have saved a lot of money on our block because of that. And then also down here on the bottom, it says the role of the block captain and what they should be doing. It's one of those things that it should be voted on by the board. It shouldn't be just something, 1 or 2 people or the block captain coordinator came up with. And then Keith, if you want to advance the slide.
Thank you, Roberta.
And then
That's great.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah, I think this goes on to Dale. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I'm just going to hand it over to you, Dale.
Okay, so thank you for letting me join this group to share the experiences that we've had at Cherry Creek North, which is a large neighborhood. But I want to focus my talk on the benefits of this. And I think the first two sentences there are the most important. The purpose of the block building or the block captain program is to build a closer community. When your neighbors know each other, then they are a stronger community. Well, why do you care if you have a stronger community? We need a stronger community because that's the social glue that holds up America. That it's these small groups of people who know each other, who take care of each other, and who help defend each other that makes us a strong city and a strong nation. So we want these communities to be part of their lives. If they become part of the lives, then it will improve the quality of everybody's life in that block. So if you'll go down that list, you'll see that communication is the key. Once communication is set up in a way that the captain knows the members of her block, then she can share any information from the city, from the RNO, or from the policeman if necessary. It increases their involvement. It builds a sense of community because they're working on the same issues, and it allows them to address issues that are difficult for them. We have not had any problem with someone saying, I don't want to be a block captain. Most people who are asked will say, is it hard? And you can tell from what Roberta said, it is not a difficult task, that it's simply keeping records of the people you're hopefully already communicating with. So Keith, go to the next one. Uh-oh, this challenges. So the most difficult thing is to see if you can find a person who has the personality that allows them to be kind and to be engaging with everyone on the block. Once you identify that person, then the work of the chairman of block captains is over. Then the block captain has to maintain accurate and current list. In Cherry Creek North, sometimes our captains move out of the neighborhood. Sometimes it's to another block. And in the confusion of moving, they forget to call me or Lou to tell us that they're going to another neighborhood and they can no longer be the block captain. So suddenly I realize I've heard nothing from that block, and I find out that that captain has moved. The other thing is everybody gets complacent once they've done a job for a while. So it's very important that the captains remain very involved, keeping a current list, hosting a block party, or having someone on the block host the party, and then getting the new neighbors visited. The hardest problem I have is the fact that sometimes there's not the proper communication to tell me that they've resigned. And when that happens, it's difficult for me to replace a block captain when I don't even know the captain is missing. Otherwise, this is a job that brings nothing but reward to you, because being a block captain allows you not only to know your neighbors, but also to be involved in the community, supporting the community in what it stands for. Any questions?
Oh yeah, this is tricky. I've got a question on this. We've launched, and we as a board decided we want to move towards block captain. And my board 3 years ago was really resistant to wanting to do this. So now, we've got a new board and they want to do it. How do you incentivize them? How do you support them? We thought about things like trying to, on a quarterly basis, I think you guys may have said this, have them all get together. Do you support them on their block parties, whether it's like, providing the cups and, napkins and bagels or coffee? I'm just curious about how much support you provide each of the blocks to do some of the things that you want them to do.
Okay, I can tell you what Cherry Creek North does. So we have in our budget an amount of money. I don't remember exactly how much it is right now, but each year it is a line item in our budget. And if a block captain or someone else on the block host a party, we will reimburse them up to $100. which means it will cover the plates, the napkins, the forks, and probably some type of food too. They have to submit the receipt to me. I have to sign the receipt, submit it to our treasurer, and then the treasurer sends them a check. Of the number of block parties we have a year, I'm going to say we only have 15 or 20 people who ever ask for the money, but we do offer it to them. The other thing we do to support our block captains is I host a party every year for all of them. So in May, I had a party at my house and we had the captains plus they could bring a guest. And I had 80 something people in my house. It was real crowded. It was fortunately a nice night so we could be inside and outside. And we acted that party the way that we suggest a block party be held. I asked each of the captains to come with a guest to bring an appetizer or dessert and their beverage of choice. And I supplied the plates, the napkins, the forks, the cups, ice, and all that other stuff. And it is a wonderful evening because all of the captains get together and talk about what has worked, what has not worked, what they wish they had done, what they will do in the future. And it gives them a way to communicate with each other. So they're building their own community of block captains. And it's a great experience and not any trouble for me.
Gertie, you want to ask your question?
Thank you. Gertie.
Do you still have your hand up, Gertie? Do you have a question?
I don't have well, maybe I have a question. I sort of have a comment, and that is, I live in a neighborhood that is, at least in my block, of the total residents in the block, I'm guessing more than 50% are not property owners. And there are some apartment buildings at the end of the block. There are also some old Victorians that have been broken up into several units, and they don't own the property. And I guess I'm really torn, not torn. I have several questions. How do you present to neighbors in your block that there is a responsibility beyond the block? There is a responsibility to the entire city and to all of the people who live, whether they are unhoused or they are homeowners or they are apartment dwellers, that there is a responsibility beyond our immediate blocks. And I'm saying this in the context that I think our new mayor is going to say there are going to be homeless, whatever they call them. We are going to be dealing with efforts to respond to the homeless situation in a way that we have not been before. And because he's declared it an emergency, and that allows certain certain provisions that involve neighbors in the decision-making, or at least in the process, to be short-circuited. And I think the block captain thing is great. And we used to have it in West Wash Park, not so much block captains, but people who assumed responsibility for at least 3 or 4 blocks, because we're a much larger neighborhood association than either Cherry Creek North or Harkness Heights. But I do think there is a tremendous responsibility that RNOs have, because they are the medium for communication that the city has out to RNOs. And I think there is an educational component as far as I am concerned. Others may disagree with me, but there is an educational component to ask us to look beyond our own immediate blocks, our own immediate RNO, and look at what is our responsibility of human beings to deal with some of the crises that this city is facing. That's it.
I can I can give you a partial answer because I'm speaking without giving much thought to that. First of all is the problem that you ask about renters. And several people have put in the chat that they have a lot of renters too. And I will admit that the blocks in Cherry Creek North that have rental houses or apartments, they're the most challenging to begin the block association. That it's not that they're not accomplished and it's not that they're not successful, but they're more challenging. So I'm going to give you an example, and it's a big apartment down, I think it's on Clayton, Lou, you can correct me. And the block captain lives across the street from the apartment. She had several parties inviting people to come, because at our parties, we don't just eat and drink, we also share information, and had very little response from the apartment right across the street from her. I mean, they couldn't walk out of the apartment without seeing the people out in the street. So she and I went together one time and asked permission to put an invitation at each door. We walked the halls, so we had to get the manager of the apartments to go with us. At that next party, she did have a better turnout, but it is very challenging. On my block, there are 2 rental properties right across the street from me. And every time we get those people involved, then they move out and we have new rentals. So we have to keep redoing our greeting and trying to build the relationships. The key to the block's party success, or the block building success, is when you make those relationships with people. And we all know that it takes time to build relationships. So it's just a thing that we continue to work on. Even people who don't respond to the first invitation, they're invited to the next thing that we do. And eventually we get some buy-in. Sometimes people don't buy in at all. As far as discussing somewhat controversial topics with the people, I go to block parties all the time, and every block party brings up issues of our neighborhood. A big one in our neighborhood is parking. And there's generally an informed discussion of it. There is never a conclusion. But when I hear the complaints and the concerns, then I come back and bring them to our board. And then the board is better able to know what the neighborhood is upset about. And I do think, as a block captain, as a member of a block group, it is important that we keep our community informed. And if they will not go to the neighborhood association meetings, because we do have them for the whole neighborhood, then I encourage the block captains to share what they hear. So every time we have an RNO meeting, I send a message to all the block captains and remind them, we're having this meeting. I hope you're there. After the meeting, would you please share what you learned with your neighbors? Don't know how many people do it, but we try to encourage them to help us get information out. Does that help you any?
I just appreciate your efforts, and it does help. I can say that, well, I appreciate your energy and your commitment, and I think it's wonderful. Thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing. As we embarked on doing block captains, the bottom thought is, if 10 people sign up, that's 10 more than we talked to before. And you know, forget the fact that they may talk to their neighbors, but that's still 10 more than we had before. So it may still be worth it from the engagement side to do this, even if you can't meet your end goal, you're still working towards that by increasing the number of people who are listening and participating in what's going on. So we kind of went with a floor of that and saying, it doesn't make sense not to try this, because why not? What do we have to lose? Thanks.
And I'm just gonna, I appreciate all these questions. Thanks, Troop T. I want to make sure that we get to Norman, because he's had his hand up for a while, and then Judy, we're gonna get to you. And we've still got a little time here, so if anybody else has any other questions, we can get to those. But I know Norman, you've had your hand up for quite a while.
I have to unmute. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Let me tell you, this whole idea with block captains is a bunch of bull. And I'll tell you why. I am the secretary of South Hilltop Neighborhood Association. Our boundaries are Alameda to the north, Leetsdale Drive to the south, Holly Street to the west, and Monaco Parkway to the east. And I'll tell you one thing, we have about ours is I mean, we're not the $1 million neighborhood that Cherry Creek is that Dale has over here, where you got these people in these houses and they don't go anywhere. In our neighborhood, our average price of a house might be $500,000 for the houses that were built in the 50s. And these people are buying and sell their houses. They're renters, they're transient people. You can't nail them down to come to a party. But I came up with an idea that nobody has ever thought of before. Wait till you hear this idea. I had to have a meeting of our South Hilltop Neighborhood Association. I don't know if you can see that. So I made up a card. I don't know if it's going to be able to focus on it.
Yeah, it's not.
Now, the question is, when you make up a card, when you first get these new board members on your board, they go, well, why don't we just deliver them? We'll each take a block and we'll deliver them to the people on the block. Well, that's fine when they tell you all this stuff when they're nice and young. When you're 68 years old like I am, and your knees start bothering you, you cannot run around to these houses, and some of them are up in the sky. And so you have to come up with another way. The way that you come up with is the United States Postal Service, and you mail them the cards. But then you say, who could afford 65 cents a card at first class mail? And today it's 65 cents, and tomorrow it'll be 75 cents. But what you do is, here's the secret. You go to a website called ETSY, and they sell rolls of stamps, for $29 a roll. And when you sell these rolls of stamps for $29 a roll, you cannot run it through a postage machine for that cheap. And so you make up these cards, and then you put stamps on them, and you mail them out, and they go through the Postal Service just fine because they're forever stamps. And I don't know why they're so cheap, but you mail it to them, and then you've accomplished your thing of letting them know that you got a meeting. And you don't have block captains, and you don't have to sit there. Did you do it? No, I forgot. No, gave it to my kid to do, and he didn't get it done. No, I got sick, and my grandmother had just died, and all those thousands of other excuses, and it doesn't get done. And so then you get it done, you get it done, and you live happily ever after. So the key to the matter is, you go to the website and you buy the stamps for 29 cents instead of 65 cents. You can't even mail a postcard for that amount of money, and then you could sell it to these people.
Great
That's my
perspective,
suggestion.
Norman. I think some people mailing is an easier way. And block captains may not work for everybody. And were you talking Etsy? Was that the website you were talking about?
Yeah.
Etsy? Okay, great. Somebody must have bought a bunch of forever stamp rolls for $15 and end up charging just a little bit of money. Keith, I want to respond to your question in the chat about the group text messaging, just really fast. So our block, we have most of the residents on a group chat, and we have a neighbor who's hosting a block party next week. And oh, Norman, you're not muted.
Okay.
Thank you. She let us know via text message that she was having a block party program or a block party. And I mean, she's probably going to have 70-80% of people come to the block party because she sent us a text message. I think text messaging is a great, maybe underutilized resource for us as RNOs. I mean, could you do a group chat with 5,000 of your residents? I imagine that there is something that you could do to accomplish that. We have not embarked on that, but I imagine that is there.
It's something we're going to look at, to be honest with you, going forward, because we do have the challenge of a lot of households and also trying to understand who likes a email, who
Versus-
wants a text. And as we move towards a new website and the, collecting this information to the extent, it's going to be really hard to get them all to sign up, but asking them this question and then moving towards trying to accommodate and kind of meeting them where they are.
And like you said, 10 is better than nothing. I mean, I think that's a start. And I know that this can sound overwhelming if you're, an RNO that has 3,000 residents. It's like, what is the point? But the point is to make it easy and seamless and to increase engagement. And I want to touch on Lou's point about renters. I think as Denver continues to grow and unfortunately it becomes more unaffordable, we really do need to do a good job about incorporating our renters. We've got some on our block that just went to the neighborhood lemonade stand that we had, one of the kids down the block. I think engaging with the renters and making them feel a part of the neighborhood is one of the most important things that we can do to increase engagement. So Judy, you're next.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I just want to acknowledge the great information. And I think just to pick up where you left off, Amber, I think renters are a challenge because of commitment to the neighborhood, because of age, because of they're working so hard, they're hard to reach. There's potentially a lot of challenges with just reaching out and getting to an engagement level with renters. And we've tried in our neighborhood, but it's a 25% renters versus 75% homeowners. So the homeowners tend to dominate the activities and the actions. That's different, I'm sure, across different neighborhoods. That's one of the ways that there's such a diversity, but it is a challenge because they are members. While they're living in our neighborhood organization, they are members by our definitions. Anybody living in our boundaries is a voting member of our organization. Then there's the supporting members. The captains, there's been a lot of suggestions here, or at least one about thinking not necessarily for the larger neighborhoods that have a lot of blocks. Maybe it is street captains and it's more than one block and it's some more contiguous area. So thinking creatively about that, I was wondering, one of my questions was, what percent of your blocks would you consider it to be a kind of successful block captain kind of approach? If you had, say 100 blocks, would 50% coverage be considered, a success story? Where's the success line that you all would think about?
I'll chat real fast about, for me, I think 5% and reaching any amount is better than nothing. I really think, and Dan's shaking her head. I think, and that is a win for me because you're getting more engagement than you had before.
Yeah, I'll chime in on that one, Amber. This here about what's involved in standing that up and maintaining it, and yeah, and that kind of taking on a life of its own. Yeah, people wouldn't define 5% as a success in our group, because it would be the same 5% that still shows up for everything else, is my guess on that one. So I'm just
I will say, the only notion I have is digital marketing, and if you have a 5% open rate on an email, that's success. And so I will say that the floor is fairly low on participation for kind of initial reaching out to folks. And I think that when you have, I'm sure there are RNOs here that have a tremendous amount of folks that come to meetings and participate, but I know that there are many RNOs where you maybe have 5 or 10 members permanently of the RNO, and any addition to that is success. And I think that, there's just a lot of opportunity here, whether this is a great program or, that would work in your individual neighborhood or not. I think that there are a lot of very solid organizing tactics that have been discussed tonight and that are being used. And a lot of it is like old school, which I love about this, which is like talking to people. The only other thing I'll say is that, you know, I talked about this in May when we were going to potentially use the Denver Elks as a place for our meeting, and just that I'm a member of the Elks organization. And the only reason I'm a member is because it seems like almost the entire northwest corner of Denver has decided to join the Elks for some reason over the past 5 years. And it's because people are desperate for interactions with their neighbors and people that they live around. And as soon as you know, a small group of parents at Skinner Middle School decided to join the Elks and then start telling everybody to come, you know, they have 20 new members a month, and they're up to about 600 members from around 150 just 4 years ago. I mean, they do a lot of community organizing, a lot of great things, but I think a large part of that is that, you know, people are desperate to find and connect with people that they live around. And I think RNOs can really capitalize on that as well.
One more thing, I just want to speak to something similar, Keith, about, you know, engagement. I think that a big part, so we've had a barbecue for the last 30 years in our neighborhood, and we have 380 doors, and last year we had 250 people come to our barbecue. And I do believe a lot of that is because the connectedness that we do have and the desire to be around people, which I also believe is probably partly why Cherry Creek North's program has been as successful, is because everybody feels connected. And I know, Judy, it's still probably super overwhelming to even start. And if you want help, we have
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, we're pretty connected. We had just to one up you, we had a 4th of July barbecue for 500.
Oh,
barbecue for 500.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. But it's
congrats.
That kind of, it's that net. What the block captain idea is about a much more comprehensive net around a neighborhood. We had 500 out of 3,000 people who live in our RNO boundaries, right? So more than 10%, but not much more, right? So anyway, I'm trying to think about how to make it doable and not heavily burdened on people who are already highly involved. You know, you can't ask any more of the board. You can't, it's that kind of, how do you keep that outreach and engagement going in a meaningful way? And it's important, and it's you are inspirational. Both Cherry Creek North and Harkness are great inspirations. So thank you so much.
You know what, one of the things I would love to know, especially from some of the larger organization, is how many emails do you have? How big is your distribution list? How many people support you financially versus the number of members you have? I'd like to kind of just figure out where I stand, Sunnyside stands in that effort. But I don't think we've collected that. I don't think that was I don't know if it was, we could deduce it from Cashman's survey maybe, but the number of, like, how many people in Cherry Creek North, how many emails do you guys have? Maybe you have a lot because you have every block covered. That's amazing.
Lou, do you know the answer to that? Because I do not know how many emails we have.
Trying to understand the distribution list, and maybe the number of people who follow you on your socials.
We have an RNO distribution list. The captains are told to collect their email and their home phone numbers, but they don't share those. For the association to get the emails from the residents, they have to get it a different way. We want the captains to keep their information private. So if we need to send something out that's not going through our big distribution of emails, then I send it to each captain and the captain sends it out. but I don't know
that's
how
a-
many we have in the RNO list.
And that's interesting. Like, I think that's a bit of a challenge, and that is a challenge with turnover and information and being updated. But at least as we're embarking on this kind of engagement aspect with block captains, but we're also about to go to a new website. Our goal is going to be to drive everything to the website, to drive everyone to become a member just by providing their email, their address. We may ask them a few questions such as, how do you want to get your communication? Which areas of interest, do you want to know about? But we're using our block captains to be the folks who drive them to us rather than the block captains. I feel like, the block captains can continue to be of value in terms of building that community. But in terms of one of the things we want them to do is to get some of this information for us so we can build out our list, and so that we can communicate to them directly with our monthly emails, something like that. So it sounds like, and I don't know, Harkness Heights, how you guys manage all of the block captains, but that's something to think about in terms of what's the end goal and what's the easiest for RNOs, least disruptive, privacy, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, our block captains are asked to help gather information for our association for the RNOs website, but we encourage them to ask permission to share any addresses they have before they send it to our webmaster. And it's working.
And that's the same for us too. We have a master list that only the board has access to. And we have, truthfully, to answer your question, we have probably 280 email addresses. I mean, that's, a lot of them are a husband and a wife, or partners, or, 2 people per household. And we've had a lot of turnover lately. So that's what we're pushing right now, is membership and updating our list, because that's the easiest way for us. We don't have a big social media presence, is an email list, and communicating that way. And that's the big role for us of the block captains, is to get us that information so we can send it out. And then the block captains they also have just the information for their block, just like Cherry Creek North does. And they can't share it as well.
Yeah.
So Keith, back to you.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Dale and Amber, Roberta, Lou, for all of this great information. Unbelievable amount of great information tonight. So thank you all. If it's okay with you all, I would love it if we could send this stuff out in an email as Google Docs and whatnot, and then include your contact information if folks have any questions for you, if you don't mind. And also, if you feel comfortable putting your contact information in the chat box tonight, if anybody wants to contact you and has any questions, I think people would really appreciate that. I think another thing that we can do is figure out if a Google group or a forum list where we can have folks available to answer questions on any of these topics, and make sure that there's a good, healthy communication going back and forth. I think there was a lot of good ideas shared tonight, as well as a lot from folks that weren't presenting. And so I think that, continuing these ongoing conversations outside of these meetings would be great. And so we're going to work on doing that as well. Great. I do want to address one thing that has been brought up to me quite a bit, which is, why'd you move your meeting? And so I just want to tell everybody that we are, as part of our kind of analysis this year on how Inc. is serving neighborhoods and residents better, we're trying to figure out if having meetings only on Saturday mornings is prohibitive to a certain number of neighborhoods or individuals joining those meetings. And we understand that we're trying a couple of things out, and we decided that over the summer, in the months of July and August, we're going to try to do these meetings on a weeknight and see how it goes. We're going to do it's a Wednesday this time. It's not going to necessarily continue to be a Wednesday or the third Wednesday of the month. We're going to take a survey at the next meeting for folks that show up and see, kind of how people like doing weeknight meetings. If it's too cumbersome, if it needs to go, if we need to stick with just Saturday meetings or whatnot. We also want to make sure that we're giving folks their weekends in the summertime, because a lot of folks like to, utilize their weekends and go to the mountains or travel or whatever. And so we just want to make sure that we're being available to a lot of different kinds of folks in Denver. And so that's why we're having these Wednesday meetings. It's not permanent, but please, we do want to know if it conflicts with your RNO meetings or other things that are scheduled for your neighborhood. And so we want to make sure that we're trying to be as accommodating as possible to as large a number of folks as possible as well. So that's one thing. The next is just a couple of announcements. Our August meeting is going to be online again. So, and it's going to be the third Wednesday. And this time we're going to talk about good neighbor agreements, which we've had a lot of questions about good neighbor agreements. What are they? How effective are they? Who does them well? And we're going to have some presenters on that and some good conversations about good neighbor agreements. And then we're looking forward to in the fall, like Lamone said earlier, in October, we've got a meeting planned on DEI. And I don't know if I can announce this yet, but it's going to be back in person. And I'm hoping it's going to be over in East Denver in a location over there. And then, we're moving on into the fall with our November meeting. I don't think that we'll do a community meeting in December, but we might have something else planned. And then I also have a big announcement, which is just that we are one of the big things that we've been trying to work on this year is to bring zoning and planning back. The committee, I know a lot. It's probably the question I've gotten the most this year since I became president is what's happening with zoning and planning. And zoning and planning committee is coming back. Amber has agreed to co-chair that committee. We're very excited about that. Thank you, Amber. And we're going to have our first meeting October 3rd. A lot of people are helping to support Amber, so I want to just say a thank you to everybody that's out there that's helping to get this back put together. Our first meeting is going to be October 3rd. It's going to be on overlays. We're really excited about that, and we'll also start getting some information out to folks on the zoning and planning list, as well as our ink list as well. There's a quick hand up, Judy, but do you not have a question? Okay. Are there any other questions or anything else that we can address? Otherwise, we're going to probably sign off a little early. Gertie.
I just want to thank you for all of this, Keith. I think it just makes an old person like me who's been around in RNO agitation for 40 years great to know. It's good to know that there are people who are still stirring up the RNO involvement, and to you and all the others that are doing this, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, Gertie. Really appreciate it. And it's always great having you on these calls. You always add so much, and thank you for all you've done too, which is incredible. Pretty incredible. Jane, did you have something?
Yes, I thought it might be good for you to mention the meeting that several of us went to yesterday by the mayor, and that we met Alex Gutierrez, who's going to be the neighborhood liaison from the mayor's office, which is a new position.
Yeah, so several of us went, there's some folks that commented that this was the first time they'd been invited, neighborhood leaders had been invited to a group meeting by a mayor that they could remember. And there were probably, I think, maybe 50 people in the room. And the mayor laid out his the emergency home, like some of the parameters of the emergency homeless plan, and that they are going to be trying to connect with all 78 neighborhoods around Denver. I don't think I'm really going to get into the specifics of what they're wanting to do, other than to just say that they are wanting to connect with all the neighborhoods and get input from all the neighborhoods on that. It was very encouraging to be part of that to know that neighborhoods were going to be part of that conversation, and that they're really, they've assigned people on the mayor's task force to connect with neighborhoods, just like Jane was saying. So with that, it is very encouraging. We're hoping to have, some good communications with that office as well moving forward. So, Trupti? And then Amber?
Yeah, and actually Alex Gutierrez, he shared his personal contact, phone number, and email. And I've already been talking to him, and he would want us, at least I asked for District 1, but I'll send him a text later today, tomorrow, that should we share this with all RNO leaderships? And I think he wants that. He wants to get to know all of the leadership in the various RNOs. So I will double check. I actually have a email in my draft to go out to all of District 1 RNOs with his information. But if he is okay with Inc. sharing it with all the delegates, which I think he's going to be, let's just do that on, whether it's a newsletter or something like that. He wants to get to know all of us kind of personally, because, over the next few months, I think we're all going to see a lot more of him. So I will verify about Inc. Sending this out to all RNO delegates. And then Keith, I will let you know.
That's great. Thanks, Troop T.
Yes, they did send the invite out to all the RNL presidents. I will say that.
Yeah,
Not us, Judy, not Denver Inc.
no, I don't think.
I don't know. I got it as an RNO president.
Yeah, and it came to the
But this is
president.
actually Alex's email. I don't know. He's probably on it. And if he's already on it, you could just say, Alex Gutierrez, who, if he's on that email, he's the guy who is the neighborhood outreach liaison to the mayor. And he would like to know all of the RNO leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think there was anything intended by that other than just they sent it out to all the presidents and said, I'll tell Amber.
Sorry, one more thing. I just wanted to thank Gertie for her comment about not just your RNO, but being human. I feel like there's so much going on in the world right now, and that sometimes we get stuck in our own little small world and lose sight of this larger planet that we're living on. And I really appreciate Gertie saying, like, let's look more about how we can just be humans together too. And I think that's going to be an important part of moving forward. And I'm super energized about doing that with the new mayor, because I think he's going to treat the city and help us do just what you're hoping for, Gertie. So thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that.
Great. And with that, we are 3 minutes early, which I am excited about. I think all one of the things I really want to do, and, the board, I know, executive committee is very much behind this, is we want to start and end our meetings on time. So we are going to do that. And I hope everyone has a great week and is enjoying your summer. So, and we'll see you in August.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
Bye, everybody. Great to see you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a wonderful
Thanks
week.
for being on.
Thanks.
Take care.